Now this here is a pharaonic statue of Horus, the sun and the falcon god, his real father Osiris in the middle, and his mother Isis to the right. And because Osiris, his sexual organ, couldn't be found anymore, they put this symbolically on his head. Look very carefully on his head, the one in the middle. The main tool for a circumcision, altogether forming the reason that his phallus couldn't be found anymore, or at least part of it. Just as the obelisk is a phallic symbol, and as it is carved on top, being a symbol for the circumcision, altogether the work of the penis worshippers, one could say. Inherited within the religious beliefs, it's absolutely forbidden to mutilate God's creation by cutting off a big chunk of a defenseless child. Now look at it very carefully here. We're going to see it again in a minute. Just look at it carefully, these two things on his side. Well, here we can see it again, this thing that Osiris has on his head, the guy who couldn't find his sexual organ anymore. Well, here it is. And this is for removing the sexual organ, isn't it? Here it is, exactly the same thing. And there are many more sort of pictures of it. It's called a life cycle. So these are the circumcision tools. Well, hello Osiris, at least we know what you're wearing on your head now. A life cycle. And there are many more pictures to be found. Right bottom. So these are typical pharaonic tools still being used today. There it is. And it was indeed Seth, or Sethon, Satan, or Satan, or the devil himself. In most European countries it's being pronounced as Satan, you know. So Satan, or the devil himself, who killed Osiris. The circumcision has pharaonic origins, and it was Sethon's idea in the first place to mutilate the slaves, because when done so, the sexual desire starts at a very early age, around 10 years old, when the human brain has not entirely developed yet, draining out nutritional liquids through the spinal column out of the brain at each ejaculation, thus creating perfect slaves with an undeveloped brain and interested in one thing only, as the lack of the foreskin creates a perpetual condition which a normal man would define as an erection when the glans shows. So this is an authentic pharaonic picture, so what do you think they're doing? Now what is he doing? Well, he's cutting it off, isn't he? There, and here's one, he's showing it here, cut it off. There, chuck. Cut off God's creation. Yeah. To convince the people, Satan was very smart, using the powerful argument of fear, and said it to be more hygienic, whereas God created the skin just for those reasons, in fact, to protect from dirt coming in the most sacred parts of the internal side of the organ. This is how Satan made the slaves and their desires very devoted and loyal to and controllable by Isis and her sisters. This is the true sense of this covenant or alliance with Satan and Isis. For all you people who believe in reptilians, lizards and serpent people, historically I can tell you this, that the word Messiah literally means the lizard king in Demotic or Pharaonic, And apparently there are quite a few people in various religions around the globe who wait for the return of the Messiah or lizard king. So as a historian, I cannot tell you if the reptilian theory is correct or not, but historically I guess I can live with it, because the enemy within is very, very real, and they're not like us. So here we can see on his head the thing for the circumcision again. There, see? So apparently the circumcision thing has to do with the with reptilians, or in this case Sobek, of whom I will tell you more in a minute. The word Christ is Greek and means exactly the same thing as Messiah in Hebrew, namely the anointed one, as it was an old Hebrew tradition to massage the feet of their kings with oil, anointing. The ancient Egyptians, of whom all monotheistic religions come from, had their pharaohs also massaged with oil, namely crocodile oil, extracted from crocodile fat. You see the snake there? And you see how long their hands are. That's real pharaonic. That's one of the things by which you can recognize them. Oh, watch Obama's hands. They're just like Obama's hands. These are like the hands of Obaton Ama. And guess what the pharaonic or demotic word for crocodile is? Msha, M-S-S-H, as in demotic, just as in Hebrew or Arabic, only the consonants are being written. And Msha almost sounds like a snake hissing, referring to the crocodile god of the pharaohs, Sobek, who once came out of the water and created the world. And as we know, a croc is a big reptile or lizard. And here we can see Sobek together with Hathor. So within this ancient serpent religion, the pharaohs await the coming of their god and creator, the Messiah or Messiah, as they force their serpent religion upon humanity through torture, by force, and by the violent priests of Amun, who introduced to us a statue of man nailed on a cross, meaning that he's not allowed to defend himself because he's got his hands nailed, that he can't run away because his legs are nailed, and he can only move his head and nod, yes darling, or shake, no darling. I'm so sorry darling, I won't do it again. Sorry honey. Please don't hurt me. Yes, Mr. Judge. No, Mr. Judge, I will never do it again. Yes, Mr. Judge. No, Mr. Judge. Yes, Mr. President. No, Mr. President. Anything you wish, Mr. President. Yes, sir. General, sir. And with all their invisible hocus pocus, they want us to believe that there is this invisible guy up in the heavens who with all-seeing eye of Amun-Ra can see everything you do, think or speak, and who can come down whenever he feels to either help or punish. But in reality, no one has ever seen this Superman coming down on a cloud, pulling back a bomb, or preventing a child from being murdered, raped, or run over by a car. Never ever in all human history has anyone seen the God of the heavens. Instead of that, he's let millions of children die of hunger, crime and wars, without even lifting a finger, nor even lifting his eyebrow. And billions of sheeple pray and await the return and resurrection of the Messiah, the Lizard King, also referred to as Sobek, the Lizard God, who created the world, who came out of the waters. And in other religions, the pharaohs also rule, as we can see in Saudi Arabia and the heart of Islam, the all-seeing eyes of Amun-Ra on a Saudi police badge. Oh, there it is again, the all-seeing eye in Mecca. They're everywhere. The all-seeing eye of the Dajjal on the Saudi police in Mecca. Or what do you know? So guys, stop talking about the dollar. You'll find this much nearer, guys. And here we can even see the pharaonic sun hieroglyph. See the Pharaoh show. Even the word Kaaba is pharaonic. Go and have a look. There it is. It's pharaonic. The sun hieroglyph. And in the holy city of Mecca, Paris Hilton has 3 handbag shops in Mecca. In Mecca, where the Jamarat has already been destroyed and the Hajj has been made invalid after 2004. So we can see her small eyes and the very physically big mouth, which are very typical pharaonic features. So Mrs. Pharaoh in Mecca, where she's being protected by the all-seeing eye of the Saudi police and the Saudi pharaohs. It's all pharaonic, guys, and they don't want the Muslim to stone the obelisk, so that's why they blew it up in 2004. I can tell you one thing, your religion is gone. It's finished. And the pharaohs, as Mrs. Hilton here, are definitely heading for a one-world religion altogether. As Mr. Hitler already said, one people, one Führer, one religion, etc. One people. The Freemasons called the Msha, or Lizard King, Adonai, which is a Hebrew word meaning sir or mister, and where the word Don, as in Don Quixote, derives from. So here we can see the Templar symbol here. Look, there it is, as we can see on all the tanks. It's the of the NATO, you know, in Iraq, and the Israeli army has it as well, upside down, next to Horus. So this is the symbol of the statue of Horus. Yeah, well, and the Masons, they came out of the Templars and founded Switzerland, their base. There's no doubt that we are not from this planet, because we're not adapted to it at all. We have to put on clothes, otherwise we're cold. We must cook and boil everything, otherwise we can't digest it. And we must put on shoes and socks on for not hurting our soft extraterrestrial feet. And there's no evolution either, otherwise we would have furs and claws. No, we're not from here. Our creators have most probably been conquered by the ones who fight others from the inside by infiltration, who have Octagon, Switzerland as their base, and who await Messiah, Msha, the Lizard King. As a historian, I don't know if the lizards are here. The enemy within, though, is very real, and there are a lot of historical proofs that the lizards are there. and a lot of religious proofs as well, among others the word Messiah, Mesha, which means crocodile, and the lizard king. In this video I will give a name to the ones who kidnap, torture and kill our children in a highly organized way. See the Pharaoh show and the Octagon Switzerland series for the basic informations. The pharaonic pedophiles Marc Dutroux and Michel Fourniret belong to Octagon, the executional force and military wing of the Templars, who kidnapped the children for Hexagon, the inner circle of Freemasonry, who again protect the Satanists through their jurisdictional authorities. And if you take the square and compass, the devil himself. In most European countries it's being pronounced as Satan, you know. So Satan, or the devil himself, who killed Osiris. The circumcision has pharaonic origins, and it was set on idea in the first place to mutilate the slaves, because when done so, the sexual desire starts at a very early age, around 10 years old, when the human brain has not entirely developed yet, draining out nutritional liquid. Now this here is a pharaonic statue of Horus, the sun and the falcon god, his real father Osiris in the middle, and his mother Isis to the right. And because Osiris, his sexual organ, couldn't be found anymore, they put this symbolically on his head. Look very carefully on his head, the one in the middle. The main tool for a circumcision, altogether forming the reason that his phallus couldn't be found anymore, or at least part of it. Just as the obelisk is a phallic symbol, and as it is carved on top, being a symbol for the circumcision, altogether the work of the penis worshippers, one could say. Inherited within the religious beliefs, it's absolutely forbidden to mutilate God's creation by cutting off a big chunk of a defenseless child. Now look at it very carefully here. There. We're going to see it again in a minute. Just look at it carefully, these two things on his side. Well, here we can see it again, this thing that Osiris has on his head, the guy who couldn't find his sexual organ anymore. Well, here it is. And this is for removing the sexual organ, isn't it? Here it is, exactly the same thing. And there are many more sort of pictures of it. It's called a life cycle. So these are the circumcision tools. Well, hello Osiris, at least we know what you're wearing on your head now. A life cycle. And there are many more pictures to be found. Right bottom. So these are typical pharaonic tools still being used today. There it is. And it was indeed Seth, or Satan, or Satan, or the devil.